Welcome. Today we are going to talk about preparing for the GED Reading Language Arts test. It is a three-part test. The first part essentially has you answering questions based on reading comprehension. That idea is pretty straightforward. When we talk about language arts, that basically means writing. So you're either writing something and having it judged or scored, like an essay, or you're making a correction to something. You're filling in the blank with the correct word or the correct sentence. We're going to be focusing on that aspect at this point in time. A big part of that is homophones. Homophones are words that sound the same, but they are used differently and they're spelled differently. So we're going to talk about some common homophones, which are very important, especially in test-taking situations. I'm going to pause for a moment and we will get started. Okay, number one, affect versus effect. Keep in mind, these are homophones. That means they are pronounced the same way. In speech, they sound exactly the same. What I'm going to do from this point forward to make it simple so that we can differentiate, I'm going to call this effect. I'm going to call this affect. Effect, affect. Just so you can hear the difference and see the difference. But they are pronounced exactly the same. So, effect is a noun, person, place, thing, or idea. So, a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, it's going to be used as a noun. In this example here, the effect was awesome. Notice we have a noun marker here, the effect. A couple things I want you to notice. First of all, in this example, notice that the word that ends with an E and this word starts with an E. So in this example, the E's are right next to each other. And that's something to keep in mind in this particular example. We are using the correct word here. You could take this word out and replace it with another noun, and it would still make sense. For example, you could say the man was awesome. Let's use a different word other than man. Let's use a word like egg, because it also begins with E. You could say the egg was awesome, and that would make sense. Egg is a noun. We can put it in there. Grammatically, it makes sense. So in this case, the two E's do match up. They're right next to each other. This is being used as a noun. It is being used correctly. We can replace that word with another noun, such as egg, and it still makes sense. As long as you know this, then by default, you do know the other word. Let's take a look at the other word. Affect is a verb. So, for example, we would say the movie will affect you. If it's doing something or causing something, that's a verb. It creates action or shows action. So, for example, we could take this out. We could replace it with the word appreciate, which is another verb. I appreciate you. So if we take that out, put that word in here, if it makes sense grammatically, we know we're in good shape. The movie will appreciate you. Grammatically, that makes sense. Keep in mind, if I tried to say the movie will egg you, that makes no sense whatsoever. So, by default, we know that effect is a noun. Technically, you can take the word egg, stick it in there, still have it make sense, and you are good to go. If you take the word egg, which is a noun, and you plug it in here, it makes no sense at all. So we know we cannot use affect. So that is the difference between affect and effect. Number two, then versus than. Technically, these are pronounced completely differently because they're two different words. They are pronounced completely differently. In the English language, though, because of the way we talk, we're so lazy and we're so fast, you really never hear the difference, and that's what causes the confusion here. Um, So they are two different words and they're used two different ways. Then, and notice it ends with an en. I'm going to take that and I'm going to start to write it backwards. So I'm going to start with N, E, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to make a new word here. The word I'm going to make is next. I'm doing that because the word then basically means next. I went to the store, then I bought some apples. I could just as easily say, I went to the store, next I bought some apples. So, then means next. Than means comparison. It's used for comparison. For example, I could say, I am taller than Jane. I am taller than Jane. Notice that when we say this in everyday situations, you don't hear the difference. You just hear people say, I am taller than Jane. Again, that's what creates the confusion. So if I put the word next in here, it doesn't make sense. I am taller next Jane. That doesn't make sense. I would have to say something like, I am taller next to Jane. So it doesn't make sense. By default, I need to use than because I'm comparing two things. I am taller than Jane. I am older than Bill. I am younger than Mary. Those are the differences between then and than. Number 3, two, and two. Most people are pretty good with the first one and the last one. Most of people know that 2 is the number 2. I have $2 in my pocket. The first example here, TO, that's a preposition. I went to the park. Sometimes people get confused with the middle word, TOO. It does have two uses. It is an adverb, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, I don't know exactly what an adverb is. That doesn't help me out a lot. As a side note, most adverbs end in ly, but the two uses this has, it means also, and it means excessively. But instead of using excessively, we're just going to use the word very. So let's do a couple examples with this. First example, I want candy too. It's being used as the word also. This is the same as saying, I want candy also. So if we can put the word also in there and have it make sense, we know we need to use TOO. Let's take a look at the other use here. In this example, I was too tired to play. In this situation, it's basically, it is being used as an adverb, and we could substitute the word very in there, and it makes sense. I was very tired. Don't worry about the rest of this sentence. Don't look at that. Don't worry about that. That'll create confusion. Just look at these two words right here. I was very tired. If that phrase makes sense or that piece makes sense, you know you have the correct spelling here. So you could say, I was too tired to do something. I was too hungry to think. I was too good looking to be a bum on the street. Sorry, it was a bad example, but so TOO means also or a very. You can put those words in and have it make sense. That's the word you need to use, TOO. If it doesn't make sense, you're going to use TO or TWO. Number 4. Number 4, here versus here. So HEAR, you hear with your ear, EAR. So I hear what you are saying. Let's take a look at here, HERE. In this situation, this here is an adverb and it indicates location. Come over here. I want you to come to this location, HERE. Or if I was going to say, here are some steps I want you to follow, that would be HERE. So If we're talking about listening, it's H-E-A-R. Otherwise, if we're talking about location, it's H-E-R-E. Number 5, technically these are not homophones, but we have our versus our. I'm going to talk about our for a moment. We are talking about possession here, or owning something or a thought or an idea. It is just like the word my. So if I said our dog is big, I could replace that by saying my dog is big, and that makes perfect sense. They're being used the same way as adjectives. We're just talking about more than one here. If I'm saying our dog, it means more than one person owns that dog or has that dog. So if you put the word my in and it still makes sense, that's absolutely correct. O-U-R. If it doesn't make sense, you got to go with A-R-E, which we'll talk about. Are is a verb, and it means to be. So, for example, we are at the lake, or the boys are hungry. Notice, if I put the word my in here, it wouldn't make any sense at all. I couldn't say we, my, at the lake, so I couldn't use O-U-R if I were uncertain. So that's the difference between are and our. Number 6, there, and there. So the first word is a contraction. It means they are. So if I said they're going on vacation tomorrow, this would be the correct spelling because I can put the words they are into that and it makes sense. They are going on vacation tomorrow. Let's take a look at there. Talk about this word for a moment, T-H-E-R-E. It can be used a couple different ways. For example, you could say there will be rain. In this case, it's being used as a pronoun. Or you could say, let's go over there to refer to it like location. In this case, it's being used as an adverb. More important, let's focus on this guy here, T-H-E-I-R. This is one people get confused about the most. If we know this and we're comfortable with this, we know how to use the other ones by default. So let's talk about this guy. There, T-H-E-I-R, it's the only word that has an I in it. Let's talk about that I. Let's talk about I or me for a moment. Let's turn that into my. If I said my dog is big, that makes sense. So I'm talking about ownership here. My dog. This is being used as a pronoun. That's important because in this situation, T-H-E-I-R is used as a pronoun. So you could take the word there out of the picture, replace it with the word my, and still have it make sense. So if I said their house is new, T-H-E-I-R, because I could say my house is new, and it makes sense. And the next word has to be a noun. It might have some descriptions in front of it, but after that, we need to see a noun somehow, some way. So their house, their dog, their boat, their car, their dreams, their ideas. So again, it's the only word with an I in it. You can replace it with the word my and have it make perfect sense. If you know this, you know all the other ones by default. It's a verb and it means to receive or to allow. They will accept coupons, or I accept your apology. And that's the difference between accept and accept.